Yeah, am I getting an echo on your end or mine? No, we're good.
Awesome.
Making sure I don't have anything. Awesome. Kevin,
right.
Thank you for joining.
Josh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
All right, man.
You were just telling me you're like something is sort of par for the course for your day. Have you had a terrible day as well going into the election?
I have had a week of, and I'm not one of these, it's Mercury retrograde or whatnot, but it's definitely that vibe. Something's going on. One thing after the next, but it's been very, very high and very, very low. Is it like
that's why I have this lighting set up. We are in the fucking ninth circle of hell. We are in the apocalypse.
Okay. All right.
And this is how my day has been so far.
Yeah.
Let's see. How did it start out? It actually started out okay. Like I woke up. I made a commitment to like start working out again this morning. So I woke up at a decent hour. I got a good full night's sleep last night, started working out. And then as soon as my workout ended, like the bad news just starts rolling in. And I guess it kind of started this weekend. So like, first of all, I don't need to tell you that 2020 has been the year for hell for most people. I feel like it's been an especial, and it kind of like, our shitty year started in spring of 2019 when I was working for a company that decided 2 days into me working for them didn't want me to work there anymore because of my career as a comedian.
I just read about this, right? So you flame out of comedy because you're offensive, and then the normie job cancels you as well. Is that the gist?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say flamed out of comedy. Definitely out of my ability to work for companies like the Food Network for sure.
Right. I take it back, of course. You're a successful comedian.
I'm not. Let's not go that far. I'm working at it.
Right.
But it's literally the last life raft on the Titanic for me is like, well, now I have no choice but to make it as a comedian because the regular world is done with me.
Mm-hmm.
A couple different things. So I had worked for this boss for many, many years, and some people have heard this story, so they're probably tired of it already. But I worked for this boss. I've known this dude since I was like 19 years old, and I was a store manager in Minnesota for Hollywood Video. And then recruited me to 3 other companies. This last one recruited me there, and it did not pan out. Some girl, I had like a Twitter controversy in the spring of 2018. Where I essentially condemned, the open level of racism that we see every day towards white men. And I did it in the very hyperbolic Josh Denny way of using an extreme to make my point, which people didn't like. And then, of course, what the internet does is they go back and they find every time you've ever made a joke about people of color or women or gay people, and then they use that to build a case that you are, in fact, a white supremacist. So this is the world we live in now. So 2 days into that job, I had a girl that wasn't even going to work in my department, didn't work for me, didn't report to me, report to HR that they had just hired in a director position, a position they created for me, a racist, homophobic comedian.
Oh, no.
And so they fired me 2 days in that job. I have been in an arbitration case with them for the last year and a half. So since like they let me go in March of 19, and I just found out today that we lost in summary judgment.
Hooray!
So that's my great news for today.
I am sorry you lost.
And it's tough because like this is the problem that you run into, right? Is that our belief, our case was built around the idea that they didn't make the firing decision because of the comedy. Everybody knew about the comedy going in. Everyone knew I was a comedian. It was sort of the same thing with Food Network. Food Network was never going to come out and be like, we didn't know that this guy did offensive comedy, because they do these massive background checks. Of all your social and everything before you sign your futures contract with them. So they knew about everything. So they had no deniability. That's why they never commented on the Twitter controversy. And it was like 6 months after they didn't renew the contract for the show anyway. But, the interesting thing was all of the tweets and stuff that they submitted as sort of their cause for terminating me were all political in nature, all things about sort of conservative viewpoints. And so in California, you know, your political speech and social media is protected. You can't be fired for those things.
Sure.
And the case just basically came down to the company going, well, we think he's a racist, sexist, homophobe based off of all these podcasts and all these tweets and everything else. And we tried to prove that that wasn't the case, that they knew about all those things when they hired me, and that it wasn't until they uncovered some of the political things that the girl who complained said, like particularly the fact that I'm a pro-life dude. That was one of the things they brought forward. And so I was like, well, wait a minute. Was the decision made to fire me because I've said inappropriate things as a comedian, which you knew when you hired me, or was it made because you found out I'm anti-abortion?
Yeah.
And so that was essentially the angle we took on the case, and we were not victorious. And that happens. But I will tell you this, I'm the kind of guy, it's like, you'll never know how many are going to win or lose, but I'm never going to let that keep me from fighting. And the scary thing about stuff like this is, like, every single job I've looked at a senior level since then, they all have these employment contracts for arbitration. So the difference between the case I had in 2013 that we settled and I won some money from through settlement was there was no contract for arbitration. We sued them in open court and we settled out of court. Now you basically can't get any executive level job anywhere without signing a contract for arbitration, which means you forego your right to sue your employer in open court. So, people have to be anybody who's watching this who is like at a company that has either recently instituted contracts for arbitration and employment, or you're looking at jobs, and a lot of people are turning over new jobs right now because of COVID. You have to make sure that you're not signing one of these agreements for arbitration, because arbitration and open court are very, very different. So, like, you don't have the protections of the public court system at your behest, and these large corporations are defended by these massive law firms that only defend corporations. They do way more business with the companies, the defendants, than they do with the plaintiffs. And so the arbitrators are incentivized to rule in these summary judgments with the defense, because they're going to get more work and they're going to make more money from these large firms that defend companies versus people that, act as plaintiff attorneys for people like you and I. So, it's this is the 1984 world we're living in now.
It is. It's very Orwellian and strange, and Stalinism comes with a Happy Meal now.
Yeah. And, it's not long before a guy who, decides I'm going to make a 3-act play in the form of a podcast and put it online. And next thing you know, your HR manager's bringing it up in your day job going, what the fuck is this? Absolutely.
And we're talking about my new play, Moderation, moderationplay.com. And it's a podcast in 3 parts, like Josh said. You're right. And there is that ugly tension in American life. We know that we don't support the arts. We're terrible at it in that sort of modest European way where you imagine that, somebody, the state will give you a little bit of money. We don't even bother to do that. It's actually worse because we have this weird kind of hyper Calvinist idea. And now everything you do, everything you say is monitored and watched. And if comedians can't have the long leash, nobody can.
The thing I've always said in this is, like, yes, I'm fighting for, some restitution in form of money or whatever, but ultimately in all these cases, I'm fighting for the comedian's right to not be taken seriously, and like, I started doing comedy when I had a corporate job. Like, I started doing open mics, and I was a district manager for Crocs shoes, and I had a ton of stock money for that company and everything else. If we lived in the world then in 2006 that we do today in 2020, like, I would have never even been able to keep that job. Even being an open micer, you know?
Yeah. Wait, and you have a Minnesota connection.
Yeah, I graduated high school in Minnesota.
Oh yeah, where
Austin.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Right
southern Minnesota.
Right. You might as well be in Iowa.
Yeah, you pretty much are. You pretty much are.
All right. And you say Hollywood Video? I haven't thought of Hollywood Video in years.
No, when I graduated high school in 2001, I was working part-time at Hollywood Video, and then in the summer after graduation, I ended up working full-time, became an assistant manager, store manager, training store manager, district manager, all within 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually 2 of my former coworkers from Hollywood Video, speak of the devil, are in the chat right now, but catching up. But yeah, and then the manager from that company recruited me away. The guy who one of the guys who helped bring me through my career recruited me away to Crocs, and we built Crocs retail from the ground up in 2006. I stayed there until 2012, and then left with him to Sean John, which was an all-black company, by the way. So, you can imagine how long I lasted there as the white supremacist that I apparently am. And then we went to he went worked at a couple different places. I went and worked at another place, and then a couple years later got the show Ginormous Food. And then when that came to an end, we had kind of been talking about me going back to work with him at his new company, and that finally happened for 2 days. And then after about a year of like the recruiting process and back and forth and negotiating and meeting with the president of the company, and it's so funny. When I left, this will stick out in my mind forever. So the night Brody Stevens passed away, everybody was getting together at the Comedy Store to commemorate him, and I couldn't go because I was doing this job interview. And this job interview was supposed to last from like 4 p.m. to 5. I was there till 7, like 7:30, and it was all the way down in Orange County, and I'm in LA. And what was I going to say? On my way out of the interview, the guy was like, "Hey, start looking for houses down here." And then I was fired 2 days into that job.
Later,
so it's
brutal.
just like, what the fuck? And then to add insult to injury, I couldn't even go, support my other. I wasn't really good friends with Brody. I knew Brody pretty well, and had done some podcasts and some Comedy Store shows with him. But some of my really good buddies were really good friends with him, and they were all getting together at the store. And I didn't even make it back in time. I got back at like 11 o'clock at night. Everybody was already gone, and it was like, to add insult to injury, I was like sacrificing being supportive to people who had really been there for me when I had a shit time. And then on top of it, it was for no reason, for a job that I ended up not even getting or keeping.
What a drag. And it was because of your Twitter comments and because of this trail of comedy that you left behind that they were able to axe you for that.
Yeah, I mean, well, and California companies can fire you for whatever they want.
Sure.
And, they can, this is the problem, right? They can look at your social media, and unless it's protected political speech, unless it's about your religion, or unless it's labor organizing, they can make hiring and firing decisions based off of that, which I think is hilarious. Like, I was looking at a job posted by Netflix the other day, and they have this sort of optional section, which literally you divulge everything identitarian about your existence. So it's, what is your sexual orientation? What is your ethnicity? How do you identify gender-wise?
Totally.
Basically, like, what are your political leanings? And people, I don't know how many people are offering this up, probably everybody, but people are literally just going, go ahead and discriminate against me in the hiring process. And, we're letting this slide as a country. We're letting companies operate this way, and we're letting them decide who they hire based off of shit that is supposed to be protected by our government and our laws.
Well, and so these companies are risk averse. So they're doing it because they know that there is a litigiousness, across the land, and people want to sue. And any little move they'll make to prevent somebody from doing that. And I'm not talking about a case like yours. I'm talking about the more obvious example.
Sure, yeah.
Can come in. You basically have entire classes of people who are unfireable now by dint of
absolutely,
and everyone knows it. And
I'm a member of none of them.
Right, of course. Right. And no,
I'm a white guy who likes pussy. I am fucked.
And no, but it's like you're playing The Legend of Zelda, right? You remember that game on,
Of course,
on Nintendo, where the tiles keep falling away and you have to run around the room until you're still standing on a tile. It's kind of what they're doing, and then of course the whole room represents the old dream, the MLK dream of the merit of the individual. Where did that go? I know these are sort of talking points and cliches, but it's really true that we really were brought up. At least I was. I was raised by school teachers in North Dakota.
You were raised by school children?
I was raised by school children. We did kind of raise ourselves. No, but my parents were school teachers, and we really kind of were like, okay, well, we judge everybody based on the merit of their this and that, and now
their conduct. We judge people based off of how they conduct themselves.
And I know it's like we're not even allowed. Guys like us, pussy, team pussy. We're not even allowed to say these things because now you sound awful, and it's like, well, wait a minute, that really.
I'm gonna have to start sucking dick just to protect my civil rights.
You go.
I'm just gonna have to. I'm gonna have to cut mine off and put other people's in my mouth just so that I can live a normal life.
Yeah, no, I support that.
Well, you don't have a choice. If you said you didn't support it, somebody 5 years from now would find this and be like, that Kevin is anti-trans.
He is. That's right. Well, what's fun is I run my own company. So
there you go.
I mean, but again, this group, if they really want to come after you, I mean, I can't imagine what it's like. I remember seeing it pop off for you and following you and kind of watching it happen. And thinking, wow, this has got to be difficult. I remember watching it, and it's 2020. That was in 2018. It's still affecting your life. You're still living in the wake of it.
It will be, it's funny because one of my good friends, she's an okay friend, I guess. One of my friends, this is the world we live in now, where you're constantly questioning the validity of your friendships now because you're like, well. This person did this one good thing, but then they did two other shitty things. So now where do I rate them? She's like a 7. She's a 7 friend. But she was like, I don't even think this will be a thing going forward. It's like, it will never not be a thing. It will always be a thing. And the hope is eventually we get to a point where everyone has a thing and then it won't be a thing. Because the idea of it becoming not a thing, that's jumped the shark. We're way past that point. Now it's just got to get to a point where the guy interviewing you got Me Too'd and you got called a white supremacist and they go, fuck it, let's work together.
Yeah, it's Louis, right? Yeah. Obama knows my thing. I mean, that's a funny punchline.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I've made jokes about every group of people on the internet. I haven't jerked off at somebody with my, blocking the door. I mean, and what scale? Right. Where is the scale? You know what I mean? Like, because it's kind of like all the same now, where it's like guy who makes jokes about different races and Cosby. And I would think Cosby is like clearly up here, and people are like, no, because of your white privilege. Right. Because of your white privilege, you and Cosby are now equal. So it's fun math.
That's not healthy. It's not a healthy society operating that way.
But we had to squeeze this in today because we were going to do it tomorrow, and then we were like, no, we can't tomorrow. It's the apocalypse is tomorrow.
Right. So. We're trying to get this out while there's still time.
Speaking of which, are you bunkered in somewhere in preparation for?
I am in New Orleans. I was living in New York. My fiance and I found out we were going to have a baby. We decided to move back to Minneapolis. That was fun. It's been a fun year, So December, out.
Did you go to Minneapolis and then the George Floyd thing happened?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking of starting a Patreon where people pay me to stay out of their town.
Yeah. Following you like the plague, man.
No, it was brutal because we were like New York. Oh, we're going to enjoy one last spring in New York and all the birds, and we've got a baby coming up fine. And then doom, done. And then May 1st, Minnesota, St. Paul. Okay, this is nice. Maybe it's going to open up. Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
John Lennon.
That's insane.
It's really been a crazy year. But we're doing all right. We're happy. Baby.
And then the Katrina 2 happens now that you guys are in New Orleans, right?
Yeah. What was
your
hurricane?
Oh, I can't remember.
Felix? I can't remember.
There's too many of them now.
But
how come they're never really ethnic names? How come it's never like Hurricane Dominique? You know, when we talk about how come the hurricane people, how come BLM is not campaigning for more diversity in the naming of hurricanes?
This is a good bit that you're onto here.
Well, you know, it's just a question. It doesn't have to be a bit, but there's never been a Hurricane Shaquiqua. Never. No.
Yeah, you're right.
Even though most of the hurricanes are directly affecting the SEC, so you know, you would think it would be a naturally fitting.
They have some good football teams down here.
They do, yeah.
This is New Orleans. It's my first time here. You're a foodie, a big famous food.
Yeah, one of my favorite episodes of Ginormous Food was in New Orleans, and the best pizza place in the country, in my opinion. Now I haven't eaten them all, but the best New York style pizza place is actually in New Orleans. It's a place called Pizza Delicious.
Okay.
And you got to check it out. I think it's in the 9th Ward. I'm not sure, but it's like down the street from a hipster record shop in the middle of the hood. So
that sounds pretty good to me. Oceana is killing it for us here. It's so good. I had alligator for the first time today.
Yeah,
awesome. Man. Oh yeah, we had.
I love alligator.
Oh, it was so good.
Have you been to Dat Dog yet?
No.
Dat Dog's great. Dat Dog and what's the beignets place?
Tomorrow is gonna be a big day.
Yeah, there's a famous beignets spot. I can't remember the name. Yeah, it's like if you look up New Orleans beignets, it'll be the first thing that shows up.
I don't want to. You're a Philly guy, right?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Philadelphia, and then in high school moved to Minnesota.
Interesting.
Cafe Du Monde. Yeah.
Cafe Du Monde. Yeah, we're going there tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you. It's New Orleans is a great place. I mean, aside from the physical, cities of parts of New Orleans, it's great. When you go, that's the thing is like when you go down to like the French Quarter and you go, through where Mardi Gras and everything happens, that's all fun and nice and everything. And then you get like 6 blocks off of that, and you're like, oh, this place is fucked up.
This is real.
This is this is the wire.
We walked into our Airbnb, and the hostess, who's lovely, was cleaning it with her hitherto tenant, her last renter, who, for lack of a better word, looks like a stripper who's on the other side of the stripping.
She's retired or needs to be.
She's retired into grifting Airbnbs. So they're cleaning the place. This woman who's darling, Southern hospitality, comes to us and goes, "Now I see you have a baby. I've had to evict some people here. He was talking a lot of shit. I called the police. So I just want you to know, if you want to go, you can go. We're looking around. We're going, we think we'll be okay. We'll be okay." Every day, this woman has come knocking on the door. She's claimed her cell phone is lost. This stripper-looking woman, she clearly on some sort of upper, she walks through the place, looks for her cell phone. I walk her out the back. Crazy. And there are
she's like, "Oh, look, I found my cell phone. It's right here inside your wallet under this loose cash." It's
been crazy. But you know what? Happy Halloween from New Orleans. Again, little streaks of blood. We keep finding it. And this is how I know, my fiance, love her to death, my soulmate, mother of my child. She looks at me and we keep finding streaks of blood and we're laughing together.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
Yeah, that's how you know when you found the right one is when you guys can just look at blood stains and go, remember the good old days.
2020.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the world we live in now is where Bloodstained Airbnb is like this, at least I don't have to wear a fucking mask. So
right. Yeah. But it's actually a pretty cool place, but yeah, it's good. So,
it sounds like you've got a lot of good exploring to do in New Orleans, and how does the constant change of scenery sort of play into your work creatively? I mean, has the year contributed a lot to the project?
Well, so Moderation is a new play. It's a podcast based on my play. I wrote it last year in the summer in New York City. It's something.
So pre-apocalypse.
Pre-apocalypse, but I saw the apocalypse coming. And so people, it's one of those funny things where you write this ugly play that gets a really strong reaction from people. Like my girlfriend at the time, not a fan. But other people
That's
like,
why she's fucking gone.
She's gone. She's got your mutual friend, Chrissy Meyer, is actually instrumental in that breakup, because that night that Chrissy Meyer had her show at the West Side Comedy Club when Bill Burr popped in famously, that was the night that my ex and I broke up.
Oh, there you go.
We knew, because she was not happy with the way that went, with Bill Burr walking these women and all this. And that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was awesome. But anyway, yeah, no. So I mean, I was writing it last year. It's a play. It's strange. It's very strange to be a playwright in America. Period. Like people think you have to be some sort of case, right? It's a little.
The word I think you're looking for is homosexual. But
right. Yes. Coming full circle. Right. Indeed. Yeah. That's 100% it. But I love it. I love the theater, and the reason I write for theater is because so much of it sucks. It's one of those things where, like, I love it. I've had great nights in the theater. I spent some time in England, and the London theater is like incredible. Blah blah blah. Anyway, I wanted to write this play for a while. It's it's about social media content moderators losing their minds at work, and I finally got around to it last year. I was sort of paying attention, and finally kind of history and the timing caught up with it. And the moment when I knew I finally had to sit down and write it is when I read an article, and I think it was in The Verge. You could look it up. If you just look up Facebook content moderators, PTSD, you'll find these stories. The content moderators, the story goes something like, might have been NPR. It kind of went something like, oh no, Mark Zuckerberg and company are employing tens of thousands of social media content moderators, and they're starting to believe the conspiracy theories. Yeah. And that to me was like,
which is pretty genius.
That's a play.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's like that. I think about like the scene in A Clockwork Orange,
Yeah.
Like
well, and it's also sort of like, how much, I mean, there is absolutely some truth to the fact that, like, if you see something over and over again, no matter how much it's not true, you start to question reality. And it's that's why propaganda works at all, is because of the repetition and the frequency and the amount of times you see something. And it's like, I just watched that episode of Rogan's podcast where he had the dude on from The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
That documentary about the effects social media has on society. And he was kind of talking about that frequency thing of like, the YouTube will, because you like looked at one thing, they'll know that, well, 90,000 other people, when shown a flat earth conspiracy video after seeing that, will click it and engage with it. And it's like, as absurd, I think, as something like flat earth is, you can watch enough videos in the course of 2 days, 100, 200, to where you start to go like, these guys make a lot of fucking sense. Like, and so, that's where I think these worlds like QAnon and everything else, where people go like, how do people believe this stuff? And it's like, well, they see it enough, and it's constantly reflected at them that they start to lose grip on what's real and what's not real. And it happens on both sides.
Well, and there are, absolutely, it does. Russia, right? I'm sure that Putin has the fix in tomorrow, right?
Or even just the racism, the white supremacy stuff. Like Steven Crowder did a really good one that's on YouTube right now from the last couple of days, where he would show people the good people on both sides thing that Trump did from Charlottesville, and everyone's like, yeah, I can't believe he didn't condemn white supremacy, and then would literally show them the other half of the clip where he condemns white supremacists and neo-Nazis and says, I'm not talking about them. They should be condemned totally. And then he
moved the embassy to Jerusalem.
I know. And it's like,
he's Jew. He's got many Jewish people in his family. This whole idea that
four landmark Middle Eastern peace deals in the past 6 months, and it's like they don't even talk about it.
Yeah, and God bless them, and God bless them, and fine. But it's like you really can't spend more than 10 minutes really dipping past that final hurdle after you pass the alt-right and you get into the crazy pill area. There's no way he's dog whistling to them somewhat for the vote. But their core plank is that whole thing. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, and there's such a small faction of people, like, when people go, well, he's dog whistling to white supremacists. It's like, okay, let's assume that's really what's happening. How many people is that? Okay, there might be hardcore white supremacists. There might be. I'll be generous and say there's 1 million. Okay. It's okay. So you think he's dog whistling to the 1 million hardcore white supremacists in the country? Meanwhile, Joe Biden is having a sit-down interview with Cardi B, and he's pandering to how many Cardi B fans are out there. I don't know. Is he dog whistling to the 150 million Cardi B fans? Like nobody. It's just like think for a second.
Yeah. No, and we accept all of this narrative just because it's the narrative. Like it's the thing because this is what it is, and we don't. Yeah, but then we have conversations like this, and things do. You kind of the brain lights up a little bit, and you're not. You just have to start to look at things a little differently, and then suddenly everything's blown wide open.
Well, and it's just the last I did a solo episode earlier today because I had another guest that didn't show up. So thank you for showing up.
To be here.
But I ended up doing a solo episode and talking a little bit about election stuff, and it's like it's sort of like Carlin said. Like you have to realize the owners of this country have made all of these decisions without your input long ago. I think the awakening that's happening right now is that the American people, I think on all sides, know we're all getting fucked over. We're all getting the short end of the stick. When you get through the rhetoric of it. The question is now we're arguing over who we'd rather be fucked by. Yeah. The guy who's telling us he's fucking us or the guy who's going to keep trying to hide it. And so that then becomes sort of an ideological difference of, well, I'd rather be fucked face to face. And the other guy's like, I'd rather take it from behind. And everyone's basically just arguing over what position they like to be fucked in.
It is semantics at this point.
It really is. I mean, and the only argument I would make where, and maybe I'm completely off base in this thinking is like, is it weird that I trust the guy who was already a billionaire, has nothing really to gain by becoming president, is almost fucking dead, other than I believe, yes, he did it because he wants to be the greatest American story ever told, this wealthy, successful businessman who eventually became president and became a very good president. I think he probably became president for the same reason that Reagan did, not as like some let me line my pockets, because this is a guy who could already do that.
Sure.
I think there is a little bit of like, maybe the guy just wants to do something worthwhile before he kicks the bucket.
Well, Biden is like in bed with China.
Well, the dude has been in government for 50 years. He's been enriched by government. So, what I said on the podcast earlier was like, yo, you got to be concerned about the people who have been enriched by government, continue to be enriched by government. And ultimately, this system is fucked until we get to a point where we no longer let elected representatives become enriched by serving the people. Like you can't. We were talking in the chat on the last podcast, like, do you know how much money a congressman makes in their first term? $170,000 a year. That's about 4 times the national median income, right? So why would an elected official not make the median income for their area? And if you want to make more, you got to raise that number up.
You have to. In the case of the senators and the Congress people, like they do have bigger expenses. You would have to account for that, but you could do that.
Sure.
You could do that. But yes,
but I'm talking about their salary. I'm not talking about what they raise in campaigning. I'm not talking about any of that other money that they can raise.
Yeah. Well, and then they have
their taxpayer paid salary is $170,000 a year.
It is pretty outrageous. And I think that once they get in, they have health care forever. I think. And just like a veteran.
Yeah,
so surreal. So they can serve one
healthcare forever. I think they get a pension for a long time after I don't know how many terms, but I think they get a pension.
This is one of the hidden stories of this year is that this class of people. I'm going to go all in and say this parasite class of people. But you know what I'm talking about? This group of people have no incentive to see the rest of us go back to normal and to go back to work and to earn money.
Of course not. Because they're making decisions on a country, on a world they don't have to live in. Like, correct. This is the problem. And this is what I say, why you shouldn't listen to what Cardi B is telling you about who to vote for and everything else. You shouldn't listen to any celebrity, because these celebrities, these very, very wealthy elite celebrities, as well as the politicians, are being the architects of a world they will never have to live in. And the reason term limits are so important is so that these people actually have to go out and be affected eventually by the legislation that they pass or that they keep back. And so they until we get to that point where they have to face the consequences of their decision making, you will never have them making decisions that are actually in the best interest of the people.
I mean, it seems pretty sensible. The term limits thing, I think, makes sense potentially for the legislature. The judiciary is a bit of a different animal, but yeah.
No, well, I think if you have term limits for one, you should probably have life appointments for the other, right? You know, and whether it's life appointments or it's a 20-year appointment or whatever, I think the judicial thing makes sense because in terms of actually, you know, striking things into law, those should be people with a ton of experience who have a life on the bench, who have sort of the wherewithal not to make decisions that blow in the wind. They can't be affected by, you can't have people that are affected by the rhetoric of the day. And whereas that really is kind of what drives politicians. And, you know, in a perfect world, I think at least the House would be people that are selected like a jury duty process instead of even free and open elections. Well, you should have to serve 2 years in Congress at some point and then go back to your life. And then if you want to, and then you can either you could say, actually, like government, I want to run to be in the Senate, and then those people can run to be president. But that there should be a process to it. The fact that somebody like Pelosi can be in the House of Representatives for God knows how long, just continuing to draw this enormous salary,
face dripping off,
just melting, you know, and be so flippant with her regard for the American people to be like, oh, they tricked me into getting my hair done. Are you out of your fucking mind, woman?
She really is horrific. They're horrific. So wait. Okay, so you're a Hollywood guy. You know, you were an LA guy, right? You're from Pennsylvania, Minnesota. You get a show. You know, was there a big red pilling moment for you? Was there a year where it all kind of clicked, or how did that happen?
No, I mean, I've always considered myself more of a libertarian. Like, I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016. You know. R.I.P. Gary Johnson. You know, the old Aleppo line killed his chances.
That was tough. That was a rough one.
Just brutal. You know, talk about a brutal foot and mouth moment. But, you know, he ran the wrong year. I mean, Biden has had so many foot and mouth moments, they don't even care. I mean, Aleppo is nothing compared to some of the gaffes he's had.
Yeah, Biden's barely cogent. If I was to call myself a libertarian, and I don't now, nor have I ever. But if I was, I would say that I'm a Stanhope libertarian. Doug Stanhope libertarian.
I like the Stanhope libertarian school. I mean, that's honestly Stanhope's no refund special in 2007 or 2008 was really when I started to realize and understand that there's this other party, this other political party that is more, you know, socially liberal, fiscally conservative. Leave me the fuck alone. Let me run my business. Don't tax me into oblivion. And so, you know, that's kind of over-regulation. And, you know, so I'm definitely a small government conservative, whether you consider that libertarian or not. But I think the thing that kind of rules me out from being a libertarian is being pro-life. And a lot of people don't think of that as a liberal, socially liberal point of view. But, you know, as I went into a whole thing about what I think the proper solution for that problem is, and it's more of a series of things like free universal birth control and preventing unwanted pregnancy, and then drawing a line in the sand and saying, listen, we have to value human life, whether it's convenient or inconvenient. And I think it should get to a point where we just draw a line in the sand and say, listen, you don't get to kill people because their existence makes life harder. And I was never a pro-life guy until a conservative person pointed out to me as a libertarian. He's like, you know, there are a lot of times when that decision is made to terminate a pregnancy or terminate a life, people go, well, you know, the mother has to do that because the child may not have a good life. Well, the aborted ones have a 0% chance of having a good life. And then you look at people like Joe DeRosa, who was adopted and a product of the adoption system and has gone on to do great things. And there are so many adopted people who have gone on to do great things. And so
Steve Jobs.
Yeah, Steve Jobs. I mean, you could go to Marcus Lemonis was adopted. I mean, there are so many people that wouldn't be here and wouldn't have left their mark on the world if they were not adopted. And so, and this is the thing. Everyone wants to talk about rape or incest or sex cults or any of those things, but we all know that the reality is most abortions are oops. And I think we have to, at some point as a society, say we value life to where oops doesn't mean you get to end another person's life. And I think we need to, the only way we're going to force people to be more socially responsible and avoid unwanted pregnancy is to make it illegal.
I think a lot about this issue a lot, and haven't really come out publicly with my thinking.
The other end of that thought is I think you have to have universally free birth control then as well.
Right.
Right. That's the thing is like the conservatives would argue, well, we don't want free healthcare. It's like, well, you have to. You got to pick your poison. And if we're going to say that a life is a life, then what you have to do is give people a solution for unwanted pregnancy. That means condoms, birth control, everything is all subsidized by the government. Right. Government pays it, and the government should see it, and all of the American people should see it as an investment in our future sustainability. Too many mouths to feed means we will not survive. See, now, Josh, you're into that crazy territory where you're mixing ideas. You've had too much to think, Josh. Too much to think. Yeah, you're getting too clever. You know, it's like what is the IRS? The tax handbook is like this thick, right? It's this big, but you just had too much to think trying to merge two positions. You know, right? Well, and the reality is if you made that legislation the case, neither side could have an argument. You gave the conservatives their life is life and precious win, and you eliminated the excuse of choice. You have a choice. You have a choice. There's no financial barrier to making a choice. You can prevent pregnancy all day long. And if you choose not to do that, then you made your choice and you live with the consequences. And, you know, people go, what about the 1% what about the rapes and the incest, which they believe is 50% of abortions and it's less than 1%. And the argument I make there is cool. Plan B is part of every rape kit. If you don't want to get pregnant from your rape, then I guess you better report it, right? You better go report it and have a kit done. That solves that problem. And then I said earlier, you know what? If you're part of one of these sex cults and you don't have a well, then you lost out on the lottery. Sorry about your luck. But we don't make laws for the 1% of 1%. You joined the sex cult. Yeah, you're in the sex cult. You're in the sex cult. Just tough embrace shit. It. Yeah. Tough shit. That's sorry. Right. NXIVM. I just finished the vow. For a minute, I was thinking about writing a play about NXIVM and like the whole sex cult thing, because I'm very interested in the psychology of those things, but particularly the women who act as like the bait and they get people in. I think that psychology is fascinating. Did you watch The Vow? No. Is it on HBO? No. So it's entirely about NXIVM. Okay, I will. And they go deep in with some of the people that were on the board of NXIVM, the people that ended up becoming whistleblowers. And, it's got all the sort of sexy, cultish things of like, oh, here are the breadcrumbs you start to see where it starts to like, this is clearly a cult. But the thing that was so interesting to me is what these women that were in this cult were willing to go through in the name of self-improvement. And we definitely have, social media exploits this a lot, but we definitely have a crisis of confidence with young women in our country right now, in our culture right now, with this. This is an interesting thing that some of my more conservative friends like Gavin McInnes will say is, if you take motherhood out of the equation entirely, what fulfills that missing sense of purpose? And things like NXIVM show you that purpose can be found in horrible fucking places. And so as much as people want to say, women don't have this void to fill if they choose not to have children, the stories like The Vow and NXIVM and some of these cults will tell you there's something there that is missing, and that some of these women will look in the most insane, crazy places to find a sense of purpose, to find a sense of meaning, and to somehow improve upon the way they feel about themselves.
Yeah, the NXIVM cult, I need to watch The Vow. I'd listened to some podcasts about it. I think it's very interesting, the whole upstate New York connection.
Albany, yeah.
Yeah, that area has a spooky quality. There's something to it. Rochester, New York, which is far from Albany, but it's still in the general area. That was Silicon Valley 100 years ago with Kodak. And then you have the spiritualists up there.
There was a big hippie movement was up. That was where
Woodstock,
the New York hippies
that's where it all was. So, and as somebody who's not from the East to sort of have moved there a number of years ago, then to kind of encounter that area was very intense. I may or may not have taken DMT in Rochester and had a UFO land on my head. Shout out to Brad Kelly. I really had a UFO land on my head. It was this blue UFO. Saw the devil. It was fantastic.
That's insane.
Big ups to Rochester in that energy.
And dimethyltryptamine.
And DMT, yeah, highly recommend. If you're going to do it anywhere, do it in Rochester. There's a really good documentary called American Mystic. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a film that walks you through 3 different American experiences. One is a Lakota Sioux who does the Sundance, where they hoist themselves up on
the film festival.
No, yeah, I don't think he could get into Sundance. It's a little
exclusive for the
a little exclusive. Yeah, he's not fancy enough. No, but it's really awesome because it's Sundance, and then there's like this hippy dippy Whole Foods pagan out in California who believes she's a witch or whatever. And then the third one is
one of my neighbors.
Right. Then the third one is this African-American guy who is really into this spiritualism, laying on of hands. And that
voodoo.
Yeah, that happens in Lilydale, which is this upstate New York community, which is this old little village. And apparently like one of the first there was some rail connection between Rochester and Lilydale, and there's all this history around photography and spiritualism and seeing like shapes and spirits and things.
And anytime you have that stuff, you also have the occult kind of creeps into that as well.
Right, and that's all up in Rochester. I don't know why I got on that, Jag, but that's another movie. But I have to watch that. But NXIVM was up there too, right? And then recently, if you really want to get conspiratorial, Hunter Biden, what's the tattoo on this guy's back?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about the tattoo, no.
He is a tattoo of the Finger Lakes of upstate New York, the Finger Lakes region. He's got this mysterious tattoo of these lakes that are this whole it's a whole thing. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, when you start to get into the world of I always wonder, like, what is the thing I'm going to see that's going to put me in a clock tower with a high-powered rifle? And I try to stay away from those things. Like, I am probably too honest with my thoughts about shit like that on the podcast. Where I'm just like, yeah, we've all thought about, like, I remember one time I had a comic named Nick Cobb on my on the podcast, and I was joking with him. I was like, yeah, we've all thought about hitting our wives. And he's like, what? And I was just like, come on, man. Like, let's not. And then, of course, he didn't have my back. I was like, okay, obviously you don't do it, but you're telling me it's never dawned on you? It's not, like, I don't trust people like that have never had horrible, evil thoughts.
I think it's the difference between like having the thought and then putting it down on the permanent record.
Who cares? I don't. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry if I got to be the most honest man in all of history of podcasts. Fine, I'll wear the badge, I guess.
I guess
I'll be the honest Abe of the podcast.
That's a good brand, Josh. I like it.
Yeah, honest to a fault, I guess. That's me. It's a weird thing. It's like if people believe everything you say is full of shit, then why not just tell the truth all the time? That's my philosophy. Because at least then you never have to remember the story. It's just what really happened. It's just the truth.
Well, that is true. You burn a lot fewer calories.
I don't have to worry about it. And by the way, people think half of the shit I say is garbage and not true anyway. So why would I go to the extra length of making things up? I'll just tell you the fucking truth.
I just had the original idea, which is rare for me. How much of modern loneliness do you think can be accounted for by the fact that we're not honest to each other?
Oh, all of it. I mean, all of it? Is that a metric? All of it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and the things that people lie to each other about are insane to me. I mean, and listen, I'm not one of these guys that subscribes to like, even though the name of my first album is Honest Brutality. In a way, though, I named it that because I was coming out of the corporate world doing comedy, like right into it. I was a year into comedy, and it was sort of a play on the concept of people going, "Oh, brutally honest." And I go, "No, I think a lot of people are more brutal than they are honest." And so I'm not one of these guys that subscribes to like hurting people's feelings in the name of truth. I think you can still be honest with people, tell them the truth in a way that isn't designed to destroy them, but is really in a way that's constructive or helpful. And then if you don't give a fuck about that person, be honest with yourself and don't waste your time on, you know, telling them things that you claim are for their benefit when really it's for your own sadism of hurting someone's feelings. And so I do think it's a fine line, but I do think, yes, we do need to be more honest with each other. And I think people think the alternative to hurting someone's feelings is just not telling them the truth. And that's not true either. And so, yeah, I would agree. How much of our loneliness, how much of our loneliness is related to that? I think a ton of it.
Yeah. It just occurred to me. That's what you do to children is you talk to them like children, you know, and you hide, you know, sort of hedge constantly. And if that's where we are with people who are 30, we have serious problems.
Well, the only way I ever succeeded in business with being a guy without a degree and without a ton of experience, and I was like maybe half the age of most of the people that reported to me. So how do you, as a 21-year-old district manager, make 45-year-old managers want to work for you? It all boils down to a book I read when I was a young manager. It was a book called The 7 Powers of Questions by Dorothy Leeds. And she talks about the importance of asking questions instead of telling people what you think all the time, because in driving their engagement and getting buy-in for what you're talking about, it's important that you are actually genuinely asking for their input and involving them in the process of formulating your ideas. And the other thing is the key to sales, man, and everything is just talking in terms of what's important to people. And if you don't take the time to get to know people, and if you don't really genuinely care about what's important to them, you do them a disservice by not being honest about that. And so all of my success as a business leader came from doing 2 things: surrounding myself with people that I was interested in and genuinely could care about what's important to them, and then just listening to what was important to them and making sure that everything we had to do in the business tied into that. And if it didn't, I was just honest with them that I'm like, I don't think the things you want can be accomplished here, or I don't think the things you want for yourself fit in with what we're trying to do here. That's it. There was no brutal, you know, shitting on people. There was no hardcore corporate back and forth. It was literally just talking in terms of what's important to people and understanding that you can't fake it. We've all had that boss that like pretends they're your best friend or pretends like they care, and they're like, "What are your kids' names again?" It's like, fuck you. You got to genuinely care about people, and you got to be honest about it. And if you don't, you just got to go, "Hey man, like, I don't care. And I don't think we're a good fit to work together." It's the same thing with your personal relationships. If you love your wife and you care about her, you don't get an opinion on her perception of you. Meaning, if you can disagree, but if you really care about that person, everything you think about yourself has to be pushed to the side. And in terms of how you effectively manage a relationship, you have to address the things that she perceives and that she holds true to reality.
Yeah. Like I'm too confident, I'm too handsome, I'm too strong, those things.
Yeah. You got to put those thoughts aside. And if she says, you know, this is a perfect, like, what's the word? A cliche example, but like, I don't feel like you listen to me. And a lot of guys will go, "Yeah, I fucking listen. I hear what you say all the time. Earlier when you were talking about this bullshit I didn't care about, I heard everything you said." Instead of just going, "What is it that I do that makes you feel like I don't listen to you? Why do you feel like I don't listen to you?" And actually listening to that and actually addressing the root cause of it. It sounds fucking easy, but people don't do this.
This is a guy who's been on Team Pussy for a long time.
Yes, yeah. No, you don't bring them in like I do without knowing the old manipulation tactic.
Are you? You're married? How long have you been married?
I'm not married, but I've been with the same person for almost 9 years. Yeah. So we're common law married, I guess. But yeah, we fight like everybody else, and it's very the toughest thing is on both sides of putting aside sometimes how you feel and talking about just addressing the behaviors that lead to those feelings rather than just getting hung up on the fact that I feel this way. And that's sort of a metaphor for our entire country right now. It's like everybody wants how they feel to be addressed, and nobody wants to do the heavy lifting to fix the behaviors that lead to us all feeling that way.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, this is maybe a clumsy non sequitur, but I really think that arts and creating things, podcasts, stand-up comedy, a play, you do these things in order to communicate in a way where it's just there's more time, right? Because I mean, Twitter has reduced us all to this. I mean, I love Twitter. I met the guy who produced this reading that we did of Moderation, Jeff Giese. Do you follow Jeff on Twitter?
I don't know if I do. I might.
Jeff is a very interesting character. He's a very, very cool guy. He came up with the concept of meme warfare in 2015. He wrote a paper on memetic warfare for NATO, and now he's associated with that concept. So he found his way to my play, which is crazy, because if there was anybody I could meet who would find the play, it's this dude. He went to Stanford. You could look him up. He's a very interesting guy. You remember back in I think after Trump won, the deplorable, do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
See, he was one of the guys who put that together. So I met one of these fellows, and he showed up on my Twitter feed on the Dumb Bird website, I like to call it, and said, "Hey, do you want any money for art? Do you want to do anything?" I'm like, listen to this. What do you think? And he listened to it, and he said, "We're going to turn this. We should do the hacker thing, hacker mentality. Let's get something out there. We're going to make this. Yeah, there you go. We're going to make Moderation, the play, into a podcast. It's like 90 minutes. You sit, you listen." It came from a reading that this theater company did in DC. So it's very rough, but in a good way, and I think it's better than 99% of the garbage that you're going to get on Netflix right now.
And I think some of those more, I love, like, I have it bookmarked in my phone to put on the next time I'm jacked in and I can just listen to something straight through. Because the biggest challenge I have is, like, with podcasts and stuff, I've got to be doing a specific thing to where I can really, get into it and not just like have it playing in the background. And particularly with, Moderation, because it's a play, I want to have it be the singular thing I'm experiencing and not be, like I'll play Tim Dillon or Joe Rogan in the background while I'm doing a million other things.
Yeah, but those guys.
I don't really have to pay attention to it.
Right. Well, that's the whole point. I mean, yeah, Tim Dillon.
But I do really like this emerging space of podcasting, almost like old time radio shows, where I feel like that medium is coming back, where scripted podcasts are becoming more and more popular, and stuff like this. A lot of people are gravitating towards it because it gets them in a different place. It puts them. What I think it really is it is like reading, in that it forces you to use imagination, and that's not something I think we use a lot anymore.
Mm. Look, the podcasts you mentioned, those are two of my favorite. Rogan, Dillon, Tim Dillon. I don't know what he did, but he crossed over somehow. I got to see him at the Comedy Store. Do you know him personally from the store?
No, I don't. No, we have a mutual friend in Sam Tripoli, and we've sort of been like ships passing in the night at times at the store. I've never gotten to meet him personally, but he's a guy I feel like. I probably have a lot to talk about.
You got to get him on this show. We'll see. You got to get him on. Sam Tripoli gave me a high five at the front row of the store last year.
I'll tell you, Sam Tripoli is one of the best dudes in the entire business, and I would say he's one of my closest friends in the world of comedy, and for all of the craziness that is Sam Tripoli in terms of like his energy and his energy behind conspiracy theories and and the kind of heat that he brings to subjects, and the fact that he's just a fucking flamethrower of truth in a world of bullshit. It is a tiny fraction of the quality of human being that Sam is. Sam is genuinely one of the most real good people in a fucking world of slimy pieces of shit. And I don't think enough people say that about Tripoli. And to be honest, until I got to know him really well, I didn't know any of that about him. But at a time when I was at my lowest in my life, he picked up the phone and called me and pulled me out of the shit and made sure that I knew, helped me come up with a plan and a path forward, and still does. Like, he'll still pick up the phone and call me to go, what are you doing to drive your podcast? What are you doing to build your pirate ship? Like, you know, he's a guy who, like Rogan, invests a lot of himself in up-and-coming comedians and stuff, and really trying to help people learn from the things he's experienced, learn from his mistakes, learn from the things he's done well. You know, he's a guy who is like a true master comedian, master entertainer, and somebody who just genuinely with a good heart tries to pass on whatever he can to other people. And there is such a shortage of that in the world, and especially a shortage of that in entertainment in Hollywood.
That's cool. It's cool to hear. Yeah. I saw him, the tinfoil hat, you know, the comedy night in LA at the store. And it was by the
way, if he heard all this stuff, this nice stuff I was saying about him, he'd call me a faggot to my face.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, of course. That's exactly, and rightfully so.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah, we've already established what we're doing.
Yeah.
But you know, no. But I saw that was the week that Tim Dillon was talking about. So this is the thing. This is how I got introduced to Tim Dillon. He came on stage and he said, "So this Halloween, I'm going to go as Epstein's sex temple for Halloween."
Right.
And that, to me, that floored me. I thought this guy is hilarious. And then I flew back to New York, and there he was dressed as the sex temple. I'm like, this fucker actually did it. He did it.
Yo, and not only did he do it, he spent $2,000 getting that costume made. I mean,
that's the best money that he'll ever spend, because that
is still, in my opinion, the funniest thing he's ever done.
It is
that little
so
2-minute
funny.
clip is the funniest thing.
Hat. Yeah.
Just
oh my God.
You know,
he's a killer.
He's like, I never thought I'd be here. You know,
right? I'm just a sex temple, an out-of-work sex temple.
Yeah, and then I think one of the scenes is like him in front of Epstein's place, and somebody goes over. He's like, "Where you going? Don't act like you don't know me. I know you." Like, oh, dude, he's so brilliant.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
He's so brilliant. And the thing I think people love about Tim is that he just destroys all the molds, right? Like, you know, everyone has this idea of what a gay comedian is supposed to be, and Tim is none of them.
Right.
And so I think people like it, and I think it's refreshing, and I think Tim represents what people are craving, which is a total destruction of presumptive identity.
Yeah. Right.
And so, you know, he's a guy, he's all these, he's the opposite of all the things he's supposed to be in this business. And he's succeeding at it. And
he's been sober a good long while.
Yeah.
Which clearly is huge for him, because if he wasn't, I think he'd probably be dead. He would probably tell you the same thing himself. He's very candid about all that stuff. And he also lived through the garbage of the recession, and he's very open with his stories about buying the $600,000 house in Long Island and coming.
I love his talking of being in the subprime mortgage industry. I actually enjoy him telling those stories more than I enjoy his comedy. And that's not a slight against his comedy. It's just how much I love. And the fact that he really, the thing I think more than anybody or anything that's cool about Tim Dillon is, like, I feel like he's really tapped into what is the engine that drives human behavior in America. Yeah. What are the psychological things that fuel Western capitalism? And I think he loves both the understanding of it and the destruction of it. And you know, I think there's so much, and they sort of gleeful way of like, oh, I could tell you all the ways we used to fuck people over.
He's somebody who grew up fast, and you kind of know it, and it does give him a bit of a. And then you throw in the fact that he's gay. it comes into the mix.
And he was a child actor.
Child actor. Yeah, it's just this perfect
Yeah.
mix. And anyway, yeah, a big fan.
It's everybody. I mean, it's pretty much like my brother's generation. So like Tim is younger than me. My brother is 13 years older than me. But every one of his generation was like Tim Dillon, and that they were sort of these shit-talking hucksters and just bullshit artists, just a total bullshit artist.
Right.
And, he's like a throwback to that. And people from the East Coast, and you spend some time out there, we have such an affinity for that because those guys who can just talk shit all day, there's
just make deals. They just pull $1,200 out of the air. They do a real estate thing over here. They sell this. Yeah.
It's just there's something to be said for people like that. I mean, and I grew up. Everyone in my family is like that. Everyone in my family has that gift of gab where, they'll talk all day. Our Thanksgivings used to be uproarious. Like you couldn't get a word in edgewise. And when I tell people, like I grew up being one of the most quiet people in my family. People are like, "What? There's no way."
Yeah. This has been an easy podcast to be on.
Yeah, well, I don't shut up.
No, it's good though. I really.
Well, and I'm a little wound up, but with the whole, we're headed into the unknown tomorrow.
Tomorrow the world ends.
I'll tell you what, it can't get much worse. I mean, I've probably had COVID at least once, maybe twice in the last year.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people say that, and now it's become this sort of cliche thing. Like, everyone's like, I think I had it. I'm pretty sure we did have it. We were sick for like 12 weeks at the beginning of the year.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. We were sick for like 6 weeks, and then we got better for a week, and then we were sick for another 4 to 5 weeks after that. So it was like, it's weird that you get like and when we went in, they were just like, oh, it's just the flu. It was like December, January.
See, they had no idea. They didn't even know what
they had no fucking clue what it was. Yeah. But it would have made sense because back then I was Uber driving. I was picking up people from fucking China all day from the airport.
All right.
And then my girlfriend was working this major event in downtown LA where they're seeing like 10,000 people a day by Staples Center. So it's like, if it was in the country in November, December, we'd probably go.
That's what everybody said too. I remember in March, everybody was saying, this thing's been here longer. That's what the word was.
Oh yeah. I mean, and it was just everybody. I remember like getting sick and be like, has anybody else got this fucking flu that's going around? And a couple of my friends were like, yeah, I had it. I was sick for like 8 weeks. And I normally don't get sick.
Wow.
Like I might get the sniffles or something for a couple of days, but I don't get the flu ever. And to have had it that bad for fucking 12, almost, it was like 2.5 months we had it.
You want to know, insult to injury. So my fiance had our baby in August. And I think I saw that we nearly share a birthday. I'm August 19th. I think you're August 18th.
The day before, yeah.
There it is, yeah. And yeah, so, but my son was, my fiance went into labor on the 18th and then delivered on the 19th on my birthday. So my son had the same birthday as me, yeah. And it was a very long labor.
You like me to believe that you were pumping away at Thanksgiving and you didn't have that in your mind? Like,
that's
what it's going to be.
He was conceived in London.
Yeah.
We know that, TMI. But
Kevin, we all know when you get so many years into a relationship, there aren't a lot of muddy waters in terms of conception times. Like it could have been any day between the period of March. That's not real. Like
there's an outstanding.
Like with mine, it would be like, it was from the one time we had sex this year. The other 364 days, we just try not to kill each other. And then somebody got drunk.
I love him to death. He's the cutest little thing. He is the cutest little cock block of all time. I mean, it's just I went to my fiance a couple of days ago. I said, I remember sex. And she looked at me. She goes, oh, I know. I'm sorry. It is what it is. You have kids. It's like, your whole, and everything changes. You just you almost don't care. You just go, oh God, I just want to sleep.
Yeah. You really don't care. Yeah. You do we don't even have a kid and we're just like, we're 9 years in. We don't fucking, what are we going to do? Get all sweaty and have to shower and change our clothes again? Are you fucking ridiculous? We got shit to do.
Do another load of laundry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Load of laundry.
Yeah. There's a great bar, a great pub in London called the Hunter S. And it's a Hunter S. Thompson themed bar, which is, but in the best way possible, right? Like, just awesome. And she
we have
showed
some
up
of those in LA. It's called Silver Lake.
Oh yeah, the whole thing. So like, the bartender though at this bar didn't know who Hunter S. Thompson was, so I had to give him a lecture. And then before you knew it, we were getting shots and all the rest. I had a punchline to that story, but it's I've lost it. But anyway, yeah. So my son, here he is. It'll come around. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. I mean, it's nice to hear that some good things are happening this year for some people.
Yeah, it's not entirely lost.
It's just been, on our end, it's been nothing but death and destruction. But I'm glad to hear that on your end, hopefully some of my dead relatives are being reincarnated in all these babies that people are having.
that's a bit of a leap.
Yeah, but to be honest, there's too many people, and if it's my family that's got to go to thin the herd, then we'll do our service. That's the way.
Is everybody okay? Oh my God!
No, we've had 4 deaths in the past 12 months. And none of them related to COVID. My brother died in May. My cousin just died this weekend in a horrendous car accident. My grandfather passed away about a year ago. And then we had another, I think my second cousin killed in a fatal car accident again this year. So, it's like, what do they say? Deaths come in 3s. For us, it's going to be like in 5s or 6s this year. So,
man.
And we're not even out of the year. We got a quarter left. We haven't even entered Q4.
Your brother?
Yeah, my older brother passed away.
Oh my God! What was it?
Yeah, it was complications related to just long-term health issues primarily related to addiction. So
sure. I lost my dad. My dad died from an overdose when I was 4. So
yeah, that's young.
Yeah, rough one.
You must have been a nightmare of a child. No,
he really had to pop those pills.
Yeah, man. He said, I can't do that. I cannot do this.
That addiction stuff is rough, man.
Oh, it's brutal, man. And listen, our bodies just can't hold up to the shit that we're facing these days. I mean, alcohol is one thing. When you start to pack on like opioid painkillers, the damage those things do to your liver and shit. It's a Molotov cocktail for death. And so, there's again, the libertarian in me is like, let people do whatever the fuck they want to do to their bodies. But I think, there's some shit on this planet that's pretty goddamn dangerous. And I don't think most of the public knows how dangerous some of this shit is before they put it in their body or their fucking doctor prescribes it to them. So,
well, the thing that killed my father was an opioid, and it's called propoxyphene. And in the 70s, they were saying in the UK there were studies saying this probably shouldn't make it to market. There you go. It comes to market, and it just killed thousands and thousands of people over the years until finally they took it off the market in 2005 in the UK, and then in 2010 in the US. And here's the kicker, because I did some research when I could finally get his medical records. And it was like, not a very effective painkiller, lethal in slightly higher than prescribed doses, and or when mixed with alcohol, highly addictive.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen?
Sure.
They're putting like little, yeah. Anyway.
Well, and the big one now is, all these antidepressants and these SSRIs that people are doing is, I think that's the biggest threat. Yeah, everyone talks about opioids, but I honestly think we're about to enter this epidemic of problems related to long-term SSRI use. And, when people talk about human beings lacking empathy and understanding of each other, SSRIs are like the programming language of getting people to that point. And so, I'll use a Trumpism. The treatment can't be worse than the disease. Right. And I think in the case of these SSRIs, I think we just got to teach people how to fucking deal with sad times instead of giving them these chemicals to regulate their brain and putting them in a state of apathy to where they can walk into a building and have no problem shooting 30 people.
Sure. Or have no problem walking into a building and getting some comedian fired for some jokes.
Right. Yeah. I don't know I don't know if that bitch is on SSRIs, but let's I can tell you she's probably not a very happy person. I mean, listen, I don't know what it is that makes a woman decide, or a man or whoever. I don't know what it is that makes somebody go like, I'm going to fucking hurt another person's livelihood. Like a person that I don't know who hasn't done anything to me, but I don't like that their thoughts exist, and I'm going to hurt them in a way that I can. I don't know, like what
you're taking food out of somebody's mouth.
Yes,
I mean, that is short of like a gun to the head. I mean, it's not. It's more torturous in a way.
It's tough too because it's also, just, there's no defend to it. It's like the crane kick. If do right, no can defend. That's how it feels. Like if somebody, I mean, and this is what's absurd about it, is someone can just go into their job and go, Billy said something on Twitter that offended me, and they go, well, we can't have that, so I guess we got to fire Billy, and I guess his fucking children get to starve. And this is the crazy thing about this is like,
right.
The worst thing, like regardless of money or the financial thing, this case destroyed a 20-year friendship with somebody, a nearly 20-year friendship, just gone, completely gone because of this case, and because some woman couldn't just see something on the internet and go back to living her fucking life and ignoring it. And what I don't understand, and where we will have to get clarification as we continue to fight cases like this, and listen, I hope to be a champion for other people who deal with this stuff as a resource. If I can do anything with these stories, it's share them in a way that allows other people to reach out and talk to me when they find themselves in the same situation, so that they can talk to somebody who has been there and has fought these things legally, and can provide a little bit of insight as to how to maybe win, and not in this case, but we've got to get to a point where we start to look at all of the things you do outside of the workplace as sacred as your religion. I mean, think about the idea that I could be fired for things I say as a comedian is as insane as you being fired for being a Yankees fan when your boss is a fan of the Mets. I mean, at what point do we go, this is fucking ridiculous? And you can't, like, at will is one thing, but I think we can say if people are firing you because they just don't like your ideas, your personal beliefs about the world, at what point do we see that as an invasion of the individual? And at what point do we say that we can't let people make life-altering decisions for other people over a mild disagreement? And you wonder why we have a country that's ready to go to civil war. And it's because there are consequences to having the wrong ideas in this country now. It's the first time we've ever faced that in our freedom democracy experiment. And so when people talk about, well, we got to get rid of Trump because we don't want to live under a fascist regime, this identity politics, cancel culture that we live under is a fascist regime. The idea that free speech is now no longer free, and people love to use this phrase. They go, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. Yes, but implied consequence is not free speech. You know where they have implied consequences for speaking freely? China, where they execute you for speaking out against the government. Right. That's consequence for freedom of speech. That's not freedom of speech.
Right. And these same people will tell you, oh, there's no real safety net in America, and people are falling off the edge, and poverty lurks for everybody. And by the way, if you say one thing on Twitter that we don't like, we're going to get you fired. And you're going right to that place.
Yeah.
You're going right down into that pit. Yeah.
It's gonna take one of two things. It's gonna take a lot of me's fighting these companies and these decisions legislatively, one at a time, or maybe at some point in a class action situation, or the more fun alternative, which is when guys like, and this, I got to be careful about how I word this, but not everybody's retaliation is going to be litigious like mine. There's going to be that guy who loses everything, whose family is now starving in front of him, and he goes, fuck the law, I'm going to grab an AK and go into the office.
I've seen falling down.
And that shit's going to start happening. And then And then people are going to go, maybe we shouldn't, like, maybe our social media policy should be to mind our own fucking business and focus on the workgrounded.
I think, Josh, that probably already is happening.
I'm sure it is.
And but it's not foregrounded in the media for sure.
Right.
I mean,
right.
And we may be in for a long, hard road.
Yeah,
I feel you. I mean, the rage that you feel is legitimate. It's absurd.
Well, I don't want those things to happen for us to do the right thing. Just like nobody wants police to have to get murdered and shot upon for there to be the right kind of police reform either. But we all agree that there's got to be something done to where the outcome is a little bit different, right? Like, regardless of all of the things that lead to this, if the public perception is that there is a disproportionate amount of people of color being gunned down by the police, the only argument the conservative side could make is, no, a lot of people of a lot of different races are gunned down by the police. It's like, that's not better.
That's not a good argument.
You're saying that the problem is bigger than what we see? That's not better.
Helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
something has to change.
But like I said on my earlier podcast, like you would like to think that we can get to the right kind of change through free elections, through the systems of government, through the legal system. And it might just take a war. It might just take a war of ideas to get us to where we need to be. And, I don't want it to go to that place, but, at some point, it's like, at what level are you willing to stand by and watch injustice take place in front of you? And I understand, even though a lot of the Antifa shit I do not agree with, and I don't think they're in the right place. I don't think they have a proper agenda. I don't think that there's any sort of honesty or an integrity to what their goals are, what their stated goals are versus what they're actually trying to do. But this unrest of the American people of feeling like this shit ain't working for them anymore is legitimate.
It's gone on for a while, too.
It is. And it's what got Trump elected. It's what I think will get him reelected. And, unless we really start to make waves, this unrest is not going to go away. This feeling of American people feeling like they're being robbed of the thing they were promised by being here is not going to stand forever. And the idea of the American dream being taken away because somebody else's version of it is different from yours is it turns the dream into a nightmare.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
So, I think
things are too damned expensive in America. That's one problem. It's
Absolutely.
crazy. You travel around a little bit and you begin to see that, like, just the basic cost of living, the stuff that you would need to protect and secure, if you behave, you obey the law, whatever that means, within limits, and you maybe you don't stand to inherit a ton of money, but you work hard, your spouse works hard. You can't even, in a lot of cases, afford it anymore. It's crazy.
Los Angeles, it's like, so the law of economics, right, generally states that your cost of living expense, your rent or your mortgage, should be 1 week's pay. That is in Los Angeles, that's nearly impossible for the average person to accomplish.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
For that to be 1 week's pay for where we live, I would have to make minimally $104,000 a year for my cost to be the right ratio of expense to my income for me to be doing what's economically intelligent, right?
And what's insane is that 104 that you're making too. If you make that, they're going to take 40% of it.
Of course, they're taking in reality, you got to make about 158 for you to be economically in the right place.
To come from, like I did, to come from a place like North Dakota, to go to Minnesota, to live around, and then finally get to New York, and then I run like I said, I run my own business. I do okay, and then to see that final bill at the end of the year, and then to look around and go, oh no,
yeah,
this is not good.
Yeah, that's not what anybody signed up for, not what anybody wants. And by the way, we live that way without any of the luxuries
of countries.
Like I have friends in the UK who make like 30 grand a year and they pay almost 60% in tax, but they have universal health care. They have Yeah.
No, the NHS, anybody who tells you the NHS is crummy, just don't listen to them. They're just wrong. It's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than whatever this crap is here.
Well, and you know what's interesting too is like their mentality. So I'll give you an example. One of my friends in the UK, who was a longtime listener in my podcast, she makes maybe a third of the least amount of money I ever made with a job. And her quality of life and her mental health is so much better because she might make a lot less money, but she doesn't have to worry about certain things.
Right.
Like, oh God, what happens if I find out I have cancer? She's like, I just go to the doctor. That's what you do. You go and you get your treatment, and it's amazing, you know. And these people that make like £37,000 a year, they're taking fucking vacations 5 times a year. I'm like, how? How in the world?
This is this thing of like America is a rich country, and it's like on paper, but then you actually go walk around, go walk your beat. Like it's like you were saying earlier, you go to the French Quarter, rich country. You walk 5 blocks the wrong way, doesn't feel so, feels pretty different.
Yeah, it's and what's the solution? I don't think there's one waving of the wand that fixes it all. It's a lot of little things. I mean, I think you're gonna have to overhaul our entire economic system, and if you're gonna really fix it and provide some opportunity for advancement for people, you're gonna have a 3-tiered system where it starts out with a UBI for people in extreme poverty that helps bring them up to at least a livable standard. You're gonna have no income tax on people within the next bracket, where they have the opportunity to actually work harder, save, and get ahead. And then you're going to have a much higher tax on the super high end of wealth. And I also think the way you do that is through a consumption tax. So even then, those people have the freedom to say, I guess I don't need a Bentley if I'm going to pay 50% sales tax on it. Right. I guess I'll just buy a Ford or something more economic. Sure. But if they do want to ball the fuck out and they do want to, spend and do whatever they want, they're going to pay a higher tax on luxury goods. It's that second group that you talked about that has the most legs there, I think, because that's the group that most people relate to, right? I think anybody who makes between $40,000 a year and $100,000 a year shouldn't pay income tax.
I agree.
And I think anybody who makes less than $40,000 a year should have a supplemental UBI to help get them to that next level, to the level where they're making enough to then, because the problem is, we used to talk about this in business is as you overtax people, as you jump up brackets. A good example would be the salary from a district manager to a regional manager when I was 23. The difference was about 75 grand to 110. So you'd make about another, let's call it 40. You'd make another 40 a year, 35 to 40 a year. You'd make about 1.5 times what you were making as a district manager. But the tax increase when you crossed over that $100,000 threshold in California was so significant at the time. I was like, I might as well not even do that job, because I'll be bringing home a little bit more, but not much, not much more.
And all the rest. I've never understood this system. I don't know who it, explain it to me, but I don't know who it works for, because I've come from a place where again, I was being raised by school teachers. And, and I came to the point where now I run my own business and I'm into these higher brackets, and it slowly dawns on you as you're approaching 40, how righteously fucked it is. When you realize your effective tax rate, when you account for all of it in New York City, is 50%. 50%. You got your 3% city tax. You have your state tax, which is another 5-6%. You got your federal tax, which before Trump was 30%. You got it down to 25%. Yeah. And then you have all the other stuff that's hidden in your day-to-day purchases. You realize that all your life you've been told, we can't have socialism in America. And then you look, and then every other dollar goes to the government. It's absurd.
Yeah, the problem is we're paying for socialism and we're getting none of the benefits.
That we're paying for corruption.
Yes.
Correct.
Well, the form of socialism we have right now is instead of all of that tax money going back into services for the public, they're enriching the fucking facilitators of the government programs.
Yeah.
So it's it's literally just it's it's no more corrupt than the fucking monarchy we fled. The taxation without representation we fled from Great Britain. I mean, we basically felt like we were paying taxes and not getting anything from it. We were being raped financially. And now all we've done is create that in the United States.
It was doing that en masse. Do you listen to Curtis Yarvin? Do you listen to Moldbug?
No.
Stuff. Oh, you should check out Curtis Yarvin. He's kind of an alt-right thinker. He wrote under a pseudonym called Mencius Moldbug for a while. He had a podcast, or not a podcast, a blog called Unqualified Reservations that was quite famous. And now he's out under his own name, Curtis Yarvin. But he has these sort of unusual philosophical theories that kind of shake up your brain and make you think. As soon as you mentioned the monarchy, I kind of thought about him. One of his original ideas, one of his fun ideas is that like monarchies are actually the best form of government.
Well, that is a very prevailing thought with the alt-right. And I haven't really, I know of that. I haven't really dove into it very much.
Yeah,
to kind of see what validity there is to it. If any.
It's very interesting, but he's been on some podcasts, and hearing him speak is very interesting. He's one of those guys like you're not supposed to listen to. It's just kind of fun. You can kind of get into
he's a wrong thinker, like Milo Yiannopoulos or Gavin McInnes.
He's much more intellectually rigorous than Milo. Milo's more of a provocateur.
Yeah, he's a total provocateur.
Yeah. Milo has his own thing. But yeah, Yarvin's very interesting, and he makes a great point about the family behind the New York Times. How like the New York Times as a paper functions as a voice for democracy, small d democracy. But then the actual paper as a business functions as a hereditary monarchy.
Yeah,
they just passed it down to the next son. So what are we really doing here? What is that paper really functioning to do?
Well, for far too long we haven't questioned, and this is an interesting thing about like the way history is taught. I've talked about this on this show a lot, where one of the real problems when we have conversations about the history of slavery in the United States is that there's a lot left out of the teachings that people grow up with in school. And when you start to understand that a big part of the abolitionist movement was actually British nationalists with the intent to force the United States back into debt with the Bank of England. And you start to realize that it wasn't like America at that time had this crisis of conscience of saying, we need to do the right thing. It was an economic war of saying, well, slavery is the only way that the U.S. is economically independent. So if we raise the question of morality with that and we cripple the U.S. economy, it's intended ultimately, a lot of it was intended to cripple us into debt with the Bank of England. We'd have to borrow money to keep functioning as a country. And so that puts a little bit of tarnish on the idea that we just got the right idea at some point and wanted to do the right thing.
These founding myths of America are really under attack right now for a good reason, because they're just that. They're myths. I mean,
right.
That one. The other transcendent myth is this myth of the heroic rescue of Jewish people in World War II.
Sure.
And of course, it's just absolutely just nonsense. People were they didn't even know that it was a thing until after the war, but it's all reframed as if it was the last good war and all the rest.
You look at like Saving Private Ryan, like with the whole earn this moment at the end of it.
God, it's just
so much American sacrifice. Meanwhile, we had no intention of getting brought into that war until we were attacked. And a matter of fact, our political leaders at the time were like, this Hitler's really got control on shit. Like, we could probably learn something from that.
Just this whole idea that like somehow that war bought America, 50 years of sort of,
good faith.
Something. It's just such garbage. I mean, we're still the only country, and I love America. This isn't whatever, but we're still
likewise. Yeah, it's still the best. It's still the best option.
Yeah. But, we're still the only country to drop nuclear weapons on civilians. I mean, like,
also right.
USA,
and while our country was founded on slavery, we were the only ones to formally abolish it, or the first to formally abolish it. So
it's just this, you have to get over this PBS Sesame Street level of history and really start to talk like an adult if you're going to examine. And then there are no good guys.
America is not your mom and dad.
Right.
America is grandmom and grandpa. And what I mean by that is grandmom and grandpa, before you were alive, used to beat the fuck out of each other. And grandpop used to get liquored up and fuck other girls in the neighborhood and come back and smack grandmom around. But you know what? They never got divorced. They figured it out. They stayed together for your stupid ass to be born many years down the road. So if you peel back the layers of grandmom and grandpop, you're not going to like what you see. But you wouldn't be here without it.
Denny, I can't top that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. That's a closer. I gotta go be with my fiance.
Awesome, man.
This was awesome, man.
Great episode.
Yeah.
I'm gonna plug one more time before you go. Moderationplay.com. Everybody go check it out. And Kevin, thanks so much for being on the show. It's one of my favorite episodes so far. So we'll definitely have you back at some point. If
awesome. That was a lot of fun, Josh. We'll do it again.
All right. Thanks, man. Talk to you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.